Good morning, all you good folks in the server. This is my second attempt at making this tutorial. I tried yesterday and it came out terribly. So many mistakes. So let's see if I can do a better job today. I posted an image yesterday in the art area of the server of a planet that I had made. And Kim mentioned that they might be interested in a tutorial as to how I made it. And they have been so incredibly helpful to me since I first joined this server. I thought it only right and fitting that I give this back. So Kim, dziękuję bardzo for all the help that you have given to me so far. So today we're going to be making a planet. Um, we're going to start with a texture that I found online. Anytime that you make use of imagery that is already existing, please be sure to source your imagery responsibly. Make sure that you have permission to use it or that it has been made free and available for use. I did already make sure that this texture is one that is free to use. I found it on DeviantArt. I also take my camera with me everywhere I go and take photographs of interesting textures I find out and about. Because when it's your own photography, you don't have to worry about permissions. It's yours. You can do whatever you like with it. But this one I found on DeviantArt, and we're going to start with that because it will give us a very nice organic starting point and to make a realistic looking planet. I like to use rust textures a lot. They're great for lots of different things. As far as finding images when you're going to use them, and as far as creating images, a couple of tips if you've never done any of this kind of stuff. And I'm going to go slow during this tutorial for those who have no experience at all, who are just starting out, who've never tried playing with an application like GIMP or Photoshop. I'm going to be using GIMP today because it is the shareware version of a graphics manipulation tool. So it's free and perfectly legal to use. You can get it for Mac, you can get Windows. I'm pretty sure it's available for Linux as well. And free is good. When you're looking for images on the internet to use, and when you're creating your own images, use the highest resolution possible. Save these things at the highest resolution possible. You may be tempted to create an image and then shrink it down to the size you want it to be for the use that you're going to give it, and then save it at that smaller, shrunk version. When you do that, you can never expand it back out to a larger size in case you want to use it for a larger size without it looking pixelated, because when you shrink it down, you lose a certain amount of the resolution, and when you save it that way, the amount of resolution that is lost forever. You're not getting that back. So save everything at the highest resolution possible that your computer can handle until you know that you're going to be completely done with it. Again, we're going to start with a texture. I'm going to show you how I find them. In order to make a sphere for a planet, you need to use an image that is perfectly square. You can find one that's not perfectly square and then make it perfectly square, but I just look for ones that are perfectly square right off the bat. So we're going to go to Google, and I'm going to go to the Google Images search. Because that will give us a more comprehensive search tool. So now we are in Google Images, and we're going to come down to the bottom right hand corner to Settings, and we're going to go to Advanced Search, and we get this page. So I'm going to look for rust texture. As you can see, it's already there. And I'm going to look for something pretty large. I want a nice crisp resolution. So I'm going to look for 2 megapixels, which is a good size, but not so gigantic that it causes the computer to slow down or anything. And then the aspect ratio, I'm going to go directly to square so that we start off with a square image, which is what we will need to create a sphere. And as you can see, there are lots and lots of things to choose from. I mean, lots and lots of things to choose from. And you can see things that people have made already themselves using these types of textures. When you're looking for a texture, pay more attention to the pattern than the color, although sometimes they come with colors that are terrific already to use. But if you see a pattern, but you're like, oh, I wish that were a different color, you can change that color. I'll show you how to do that. So pay attention to the pattern first. And the image that I used yesterday is this little number right here. I already have it saved on my computer. We'll just go to the image so that you can see that the person has made it used for free for your designs, but please notify. And I certainly did notify, which is only fair to this individual who took their time to create this. So I have this already on my computer, and we're going to start with that. So let's pull it. Where are you? There you are. We're going to pull it into the application. I'm using GIMP. Again, it's free, it's shareware, it's open source, it's terrific. I love it. And here's the texture. It's got a lot of great colors to it. I'm going to show you how it is that first we make it into a sphere, and then how we make that sphere look more realistically three-dimensional. We are first going to make sure that this particular layer has what's called an alpha channel. The alpha channel is what's used whenever an image is going to have any kind of transparency, and we are going to need transparency for this. So the first thing we're going to do is simply go to the layer box, go to transparency, and add the alpha channel. You're not going to really see much of anything happen. If you come down here to the right and you go to the channels box, you'll see now that there's red, green, blue, and also alpha channel. And that's exactly what we want to see. If you want to see what I'm talking about as far as playing with the colors, let's start with that first, actually. Now that we have the alpha channel there, you can come to the colors box, and there's lots of different things, and I mean so many different things you can do. I could spend hours and hours talking about how to alter the coloration, the intensity, the brightness. When it comes to this application, I just taught myself by pressing buttons and seeing what different things did and combining different effects. So you can come to something like the color temperature, and you will notice that when I swing it over to the left, we start going blue, and when I bring it over to the right, we get into a more intense red. There's lots of different things you can do to the colors. That's what I was saying, that the pattern is more important than the color to begin with. So let's cancel out of that because I'm going to use it just as is. The first thing that we're going to do is, let's go back to the layers, and so that we can see the different layers that we're going to use. This is the layers dialog box here. This will show you the different layers that you're using. If you've never used a program like this, an application like this, think of it kind of like an old school overhead projector where the teacher had the sheets of clear plastic and would write on them with the marker, and it would project onto the screen. And there could be more than one sheet of plastic on there. Think of the different layers as like sheets of clear plastic that are laying one on top of another to create a single image that you will export as one single image rather than several images. Sorry, I'm a little congested today. So let's make this into a sphere. You're going to come to the filters dialog, the distort dialog, and then apply lens. This is going to be super easy. And boom, it turns it immediately into a sphere. Now you can see that there is a pink outline around the sphere. That's because it picked up the background color over here to the left from the palette area. But we want to get rid of that. We don't want any background at all. We want it to be clear. So we click into the color itself, and then this last option here is the alpha channel, and we're going to swing that clear over to the left. And you will see that the checkerboard pattern opens up behind the image. And that checkerboard pattern is indicative of transparency. So that's exactly what we want. We're going to hit OK, and we're going to hit OK. And as you can see in the image here, the sphere module in the application has created a kind of foreshortening and distortion around the edges that helps sell the idea of curvature, of sphericalness to the sphere itself. But it still looks flat. Um, there are certain things you can do with a flat image like this if you're looking to do something uh, with a different aesthetic where it does appear more flat. I'm going to create one that's a little more photorealistic, three-dimensional. So there's a few different things we're going to do to this to add to that. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to increase the size of the actual palette because we need more room, or rather the canvas, I'm sorry. We're going to increase the size of the canvas because we need a little bit more room to play with this image. So we're going to come up to the image box and canvas size. And this is going to be a good sized image. It's at 2000. And we are going to take this up to 2500 in both directions. And you will see that the canvas increases in size. And then you come hit the center box so that it puts it in the center. And make sure that the fill width is at transparency because we want to keep all this area transparent around the image. And there, now we have more canvas around the image to play with. I'm going to zoom out a little bit just so that we can see it a little better. It's not actually shrinking the image, we're just stepping back a little bit so that we have more room to play. Now what we're going to do is we need to add a few more layers. First, we're going to add a background layer, which is just there for us to be able to better see the different things that we're doing to the image. So we are going to come to layers, new layer, and this is the colors dialog box. And what we want is the foreground color, which is black right now at the moment. We're going to do that. And the whole image turns black because the topmost layer now is the black layer. And then underneath that is the planet itself. So the way to move these so that you change their position, there are little down arrows and up arrows down here at the bottom. And we will simply make sure that we're clicked on the black layer and then move it down. And now it's behind. So it's starting to look a little bit more like the end product that we want. But there definitely are a few different things that we need to do to this. The first thing that we're going to do is we need to create a few extra layers to be able to make the atmosphere and also to create the shadow that will be apparent when we make it look as though the sun is shining on one side of this planet. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come to the layer where the planet actually is, right? Make sure you're clicked into here. And I'm going to give you a fair warning. It's very possible that I will make errors that have to do with not being clicked into the correct layer. It's a very common problem with these types of applications. Don't let it frustrate you too much if it happens to you. It happens to me all the time. Control or Command Z is your friend to undo things that you have accidentally done either in the wrong layer or in an incorrect area. But let's go. We are in the planetary layer. We are going to, what we want is, we want to first select this transparent area out here because remember that this is actually transparent. The black layer is hiding underneath the planet, but we're in the planets layer. So around it, there's actually nothing. And we're going to use the fuzzy select tool and we're going to select this area outside of the planet because it is pure transparency and we're going to get a nice clean grab when we grab this part. If we try to grab the planet itself, it's got all different kinds of colors. It's difficult to get the whole thing because it's picking colors. And out here, there's only one color. It's not really a color, it's transparency, but the application sees it as the transparent color. So when we choose it, you'll see a white line form around the planet. That means that we have chosen everything around it. See, there it is. So now we have that selected, but that's not really the part that we want. We want the interior part. So in order to get the interior part instead, we come to select and we invert the choice. So now we choose the opposite of what we had originally chosen. So now this interior portion is chosen. And it's going to stay chosen until we unchoose it, until we unselect it. So now we're going to create a few different layers. First we come to layer, new layer, and we're going to make sure that it is a transparent layer. We're going to be using transparencies, right? And you can look over here to the right, and here is a new layer of transparency. We're going to call it atmosphere. Now, you can make the atmosphere any color you like. I personally find that it looks best, looks most realistic when you pick a color that exists already within the image itself, when you use the image's color palette. So first we're going to pick a color out of this um, ball here. I like the red color. That's what I used the other day. And first, you see this over here where you see there's a black box and then a pink box. Let's revert that back to its original black and white. And there's a little tiny black and white square here. If you just click it, it takes it back to its starting point, which is black and white. So we choose the black color now, and now we're in the dialog box for the colors. And this little number over here is the color picker. So we're going to choose the color picker, and we're going to pick up a red out from the actual image itself. I want a nice red. So there, I like that one. So then click this arrow over, and there is the red color chosen, right? So now remember that we still have this circular area here selected, and we are now going to use the bucket fill option. And there it is full. Next to each of these layers, you'll see a little eyeball, and that lets you turn the layer on and off without actually removing the layer. It just makes it invisible so that you don't see it for the time being. But that, I'm just turning it off so that you can see that the planet is still most certainly there. We haven't filled it in itself. It's just another layer laying on top. We need 3 of these layers. So down here at the bottom of the dialog box, there is these 2 little squares, one on top of the other. This is the duplicate tool. Make sure that you're in the layer that you want to duplicate, and then just duplicate it. Click and click. So now we have 3 versions of it. We need 1 of these on top of the planet, and we need 2 of them underneath the planet. So I'm going to click this one here, and then I'm going to use the down arrow to migrate it until it's underneath the planet. I'm going to click the other one, and I'm going to migrate it beneath the planet as well. So now you see we have 1 orange circle above the planet itself, and then 2 orange circles beneath. Now we need actually 1 more circle. We need one that is going to be black instead of orange. So we're going to click up here to the top. We go back to the layers. We do a new layer. We want it to be transparency. That's right. Oh, that's exactly what we want. We already have this area selected. Remember, this area is still selected. And we need to change these back to their original black and white colors by clicking the little black and white boxes. Click. There you go. And we are already in the bucket fill option. And then this one here, we will fill black. The image will look entirely black now because the layers have conspired to make it look so. But all these images are still actually there, as you see when I turn off their eyes. Okay? Now, let's turn off the black layer because we're going to use that one last. And let's turn off the atmospheric layer that's on top because that's also towards the end. First, we're going to play with these 2 layers that are underneath the planet. Now, this is where it's important to deselect any areas that you have already selected. Because what we're going to do to the whole of the area of the layer, not just one section of the layer. This is also a very common error that you will make. We all make it, playing with these types of applications. You'll forget that an area has been selected. You'll go to do something to the image. Nothing seems to happen. And what's happening is that you have a little area selected, and it's only going to do it to that area. And it's not the area that you want. That's usually what has happened. So first we're going to make sure that we have select and that we click none. We want nothing selected at all. No particular area has been selected. We're going to come to this lower atmospheric layer, and we're going to give it a Gaussian blur. We want to create a kind of halo effect around the planet. And this first one here, we will go to Filters, we will go to Blur, and we will go to Gaussian Blur. Now, as soon as I click the size, you're gonna see it balloon out. It's gonna be far too much because it always goes to almost 100 as soon as you click in. But you can see how it has created a sort of halo around that. That's too much. I'm gonna reduce that to just 30 points. That's all I want. I want it a little bit tighter, okay? And now you can see the halo that has formed around the planet. Now, the layer that is above this one, we're going to do the same thing to it, but we're going to do a much tighter blur because what we want to do is to create the appearance of a thickened layer closer to the planet that's a little more than what you see now. So we will come to Filters, we will blur again to Gaussian blur. And this time, again, you saw it balloon out, and we're going to take it to just 10. And that gives us a nice bright area close and then a hazier area out. And it's like it's got layers. And that is what we want. When you see images of the Earth and you see them, the image getting close to the edge, that's how the atmosphere looks because it gets thicker as it goes down. And you see that when you're from far away. But right now, the atmosphere doesn't look very convincing because it looks like it's completely behind the planet. So we need to create the illusion that this atmosphere is completely around the planet. And the way to do that is to create the illusion that when you're looking down towards the middle of the planet, you don't see any coloration of atmosphere because that is how it is in nature. But as you get closer to the edge and you're looking through a thicker layer, because now you're looking at an angle, you get a quick buildup of haze. So that's what we're going to create. So we turn this upper atmosphere, the atmosphere layer that's above, we turn it back on, and there it is again. And make sure turning it back on doesn't actually click you into it. That's where almost always the mistake happens. You need to turn it on, and then you actually need to click the layer itself. I know that's kind of a pain, but just remember that. Just turning it on doesn't actually choose it. You have to then choose it. So now that we've chosen the layer, and because this is one single solid color, we can just pick it very easily with the fuzzy select tool. We don't have to go through that invert process again because it's a single solid color. So when I click it, you'll see that a white line forms around the chosen area. And you can see that there's still the halo that goes out past that because those are the layers that are underneath that have been poofed out a little bit. So we're going to take this area, now that we've chosen it, and we are going to come to the select option, and then we're going to come to the shrink option. Oh, my mouse has died. Hold on a second. So sorry, technical difficulty. Let's hope this is the only. There we go. Okay, select, and we're going to. Nope, not invert. Nope, nope. Okay, undo that. Then we're going to select, we're going to shrink, and I'm going to shrink it by about, let's do 25. And then we're going to do edit cut, because all we have done is shrunk the selection. We haven't actually shrunk the item. We just shrunk the area that we selected. So I shrunk it down a little bit, and now we're going to cut that area out. Right? Now, if we turn off these other layers, you can see the layer that remains behind. It's just a ring, right? And it's a very hard lined ring. Obviously, we don't want that hard of a line. So we are going to make sure that we deselect, right? Make sure that we're back into that layer that has the ring. Come back up, select none, because we want to blur that layer out completely. And we're going to come to Filters, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and this time we're going to take this to about 15. And now you can see that this gives us an area of glow that overlaps the planet, but you can still see the planet through the glow itself. So you get that buildup of haze, and then you get the edge of the planet, and then you get the haze that continues on. And this is what helps sell the idea that the atmosphere is wrapped around. The more you shrink that initial cut and you leave a thicker ring, the hazier the atmosphere will appear, because the illusion of haze will come closer and closer in, and you will get the appearance of more and more haziness. I find that 15 is pretty good for the particular effect that I want to do. You can play with it and see what other effects you can get. Um, so if you don't want any shadow at all, you almost have a complete project here. You could turn off the lowest layer, that's just the background layer to help us see things. And you can export this, and you could use this as is if this is the way you wanted to represent it. I want to create a shadow so that it looks a little bit more like it's actually hanging in space. So we turn that back on just for ease of use. And we're going to zoom out a little bit because we're going to make a very large brush here, and we need to back the image up a little bit. So we take it out. Again, I haven't actually altered the image. I've just panned how far back out we're looking at it. And now we're going to turn this black layer back on, because this is what's going to create our shadow for us. Okay? We're going to use the erase tool, or actually we're going to use the brush tool. You can use the erase tool, but there are certain other things that I want to do that we're going to make use of what's called the alpha to selection to be able to do opposing things to opposing areas. If you just do a simple erase, you lose the option of doing those opposing things, and I'll show you what I mean here in a second. So first we're going to pick the brush tool, and then we're going to pick not the hard-edged brush over here, but the first of the soft-edged brushes. It's already selected, but it's at a very small size at the moment. We're going to scale this up to 3000. And as you can see, it's quite large. It's larger than the canvas itself. But that's what we need, because we need that greater area of curvature than the planet itself would give us. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change the foreground color. See how the foreground color is black and the background color is white? We're going to, with these two little arrows here, you can switch that choice. Now the foreground color is white. That's the color that we're using. And I'm going to come in pretty tightly into the planet, and I'm going to drop a big white sploot right here. Nope, first we have to make a new layer. I'm sorry. I knew there would be a mistake. New layer, make sure it's transparency. There, and it's on the very top, because we're going to be using this layer to do things to all the layers underneath it. So make sure that it's on top. And we're going to drop this sploot right here, and we're going to click 3 times without moving the mouse at all. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to use this white area, and it has to be perfectly white, so that the hexadecimal code is Fs all the way across, F, 5 Fs. And we're going to use this as a sort of template. The application understands that pure white is the trigger for creating transparencies and for how it uses alpha channel. So it's got to be that color. There's no really choice around that. So we have that there, and as long as we're in the layer itself, now we're going to come back up and we're going to do layers, transparency, and alpha to selection. You're not going to really see anything happen, but we have now chosen that white area in that layer as the template for the differing manipulations that we're going to create in the other layers. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to drop down. Let's get rid of this big, let's just do the movement select, because that's annoying. Okay, so we're going to drop down to the black layer, and we want to remove this, at least part of it. So we have remember that the white area is selected. We drop into the black layer, and we do edit, cut. Now, if you turn the white layer off, you will see that we have removed an area that now creates a realistic, curved, spherical, three-dimensional shadow. As long as you have that white area selected, you can turn the layer itself off so that you don't see it. And it's still functioning as the selected area. So you can see that it looks pretty good so far. What's not looking very good is that the atmospheric glow to the dark side of the planet is still as bright as it was, and we don't really want that. We want that to fade away. So what we're going to do is, since the white area is currently selected, we come and we select and we invert. And now that's going to select all the areas that are not the white area. And we're going to come to the first atmospheric layer, and we will do edit, cut, and we will come to the atmospheric layer underneath the planet, and we will do edit, cut, and we will come to the last atmospheric layer, and we will do edit, cut. And now that removes that atmospheric glow from the side of the planet that is darker because it shouldn't be glowing. There's no light there. And we now have a planet floating in black space without any stars behind it. So let's put some stars behind it to be able to more realistically imagine what this would look like. So let's come here. I already have an image that has stars that we can make use of. We will pop this here, drag it into the layer, and let's increase the size of that a little bit to make it look better. We will scale the layer. We'll take this to about 3000. And let's zoom back in a little bit so that we can see it better. And there is a planet floating in space with an atmosphere. Do you see how the glow sells that idea that there's an atmosphere? You can turn that atmosphere off. And this is what I was saying earlier, that you should keep everything in its most manipulatable format. Don't flatten the layers down until you are 100% sure that you're totally done with the project. And even then, if you look over to the right of the screen, you'll see a whole bunch of little GIMP faces. These are all my different files of different projects that I use. I actually never completely flatten them down because you never know when you're going to go back and play with something. And you want to be able to have it in its working fashion. But now that we have it here, I'm going to turn the atmospheric layers off so that you don't see them. And you will see that you still get a planet with the shadow, but now it has a very crisp edge. And when you are looking at an image like this, that very crisp edge sells the idea of no atmosphere, like our planet, or rather our moon or Mercury, where there's just nothing. But if you turn them back on, you get that haloed effect of there's some kind of air down there, and it just helps to sell that image a little better. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Again, I'm nobody's guru. I learned just by pressing buttons. I probably don't know all the right terminology for everything. If there's anything you ever see me make that you like and you think is interesting, or you wonder how I made a certain thing happen, please feel free to ask. I will happily share any knowledge that I have. And I hope you guys have a great day.